What is up? What is up? Welcome one and all. I don't know what is going on here. I'm having glitches from the very start. This is an ominous feeling already. Thank you. Welcome. It is Reality Decoded. Thank you for those of you that have chosen to tune in. I don't know why. Unfortunately, my black and white filter seems to deactivate itself every time the stream starts, but we do have 7 watching. Glynis, you always seem to be the first regular offender through the door, and it is always a pleasure to see you, Al78, my dear, and close compatriot in arms when it comes to trying to spread a little bit of realism on social media platforms such as YouTube. Now tonight you must already have seen the thumbnail in the title. We are going to be delving a little bit deeper into the Darpa narrative network killing memes. Welcome, Gary Thorsell, if I'm reading that correctly or incorrectly. Please forgive me if the latter is the case. Always good to see a new face or a returning face that was once a regular offender. If you haven't been around for a while, and if I have forgotten, please forgive me. Lots of things have been going on in the last 12 months in my life, not only around the world. There we are, that's a lot better, coming at you at black and white. Now, some of you may recall that last Friday I did attempt to stream on 2 occasions. The stream I am once again going to attempt to bring you tonight, which is a little dive and delve into the world of memetics, something that you should be all too familiar with if you are a regular offender to this channel, and a topic I have certainly covered a lot in the last 18 months to 2 years. There's an awful lot of content out there on my channel about memetics, yet there are very few channels that are sort of within this genre of entertainment, education, information, maybe sort of trying to see what's real, what isn't real, that I sort of follow along with in a few channels that I watch, but I don't really see anybody talking about the danger of memetics and just what is the purpose of so many memes that seem to be saturating social media. And often, sorry, I must apologize, I do have what seems to be extremely rambunctious animals this evening. If or not there is something to do with the lunar cycle or something in the energy in the land here in Yucatan, where I now live, which is of course Mayan country. That might be something to interestingly explore at a later date. But tonight we are going to be exploring once again memetics. So those of you who want to make your excuses and go walk the dog, or somebody's knocked at the door, all of a sudden you've got to do some washing and laundry, now would be the time to make those excuses and leave before we do start this evening's presentation. Now, fingers crossed we will be able to get through this evening without any glitches which seem to hamper the experience quite a lot. Last weekend, I know Al, you were here. Hello, Miss Blanche, good to see you. My goodness, it's saying we've got 10 watching, so I've already met my 10 viewers bar that I set for myself. Now if we can get 50 views in return, my job here, work here is done. Good to see you, Joe Ayala. Pleasure as always, hombre. Hermano amigo. Good to see you, bro. So if or not I'm raising a red flag to the algorithm, if we are going to be passively censored and shadow banned this evening, we'll have to wait and see. Some things are out of my control. Now the other thing that I may sort of be an explanation as to why last week we had so many glitches on Friday night. Thursday I did a sort of stream without any presentation, just off the cuff, just to get back into sort of practice, which went pretty smoothly, and sort of with that incentive and enthusiasm I got up on Friday and put together the presentation, hopefully we're seated, right? And tried on several occasions to stream live to no avail. If or not this is an example of real-time passive censorship, shadow banning, because at one point during the first attempt to the stream I did have up to 15 people watching, which is almost viral for shit video production presentations to have 15 people tuning in. Most of the time it's just me and lonely old Glynis with nothing else better to do. You know I love you, Glynis. But yeah, I have done a few streams in the last few months to single digits, and not so long ago just to one person, Glynis. Me and her had a little chin wag one-on-one, but with the sort of small success of sort of having a smooth stream, getting myself and my mind then sort of back into the practice of streaming is something I've sort of forgotten a little bit how to do in some of my sort of streaming apps. I forgot passwords too and such forth. I had to sort of refresh my brain and sort of revitalize a little bit of enthusiasm. But having an enthusiastic experience on Thursday night, it sort of crushed and thwarted any sort of desire to want to go forward. And is this in fact evidence of shadow banning? And if we look into this evening stream and pay attention, there might even be evidence within the information that I provide you that could explain exactly what happened, because it didn't sort of end once I abandoned the streams on Friday. Within an hour of me sort of shutting everything down, I took my dogs out for a little walk to sort of bring myself down, get some fresh air, beautiful clear night here in the tropics. Come back, smoked a joint. By the time I finished smoking, I had a migraine, and that migraine lasted until Monday morning. On Friday night and Saturday night, I was unable to really do anything or function, and sort of had my face lying down on the ground. Now, there is a device that is linked to mimetic warfare that can be condensed and inputted and installed within cellular devices. This isn't something that is a stretch of the imagination, that the technology is there, that exists, that actually can cause the symptoms which I experienced. I'm not saying that I did experience the symptoms of electromagnetic frequencies that affected my left temporal lobe, which was where the area that the migraine was in. But I don't think I've ever had a sort of migraine that has lasted for nearly 48 hours and sort of debilitated me the way it did. Usually a couple of cups of coffee, a few spliffs, and maybe a handful of painkillers. I can get through it, but it knocked me for six. And if or not that was continued effect, my God, this guy's going to be talking about shit we don't want people to listen to, even though he's only got 15 viewers. Let's remove them from the equation. Let's shut down his next stream, and let's give this motherfucker a migraine for the next 36 hours, so he's going to be unable to get up and present on YouTube, which was the case. Now, I've also sort of had a week of personal problems, which we won't sort of go on to, that have sort of prevented me from doing this stream any sooner. But as we went on last Thursday, and with good luck, I thought, let's see if the omens are with me, and let's try again this evening. But literally, as I was about to press go live on my phone, one of my dogs decided to throw up everywhere. There was dog puke all over the place that I had to sort of clean up, mop up, make sure she was all right, take her outside, try to get some water into her and give her a little sort of medicine to settle her stomach. And all of a sudden I'm thinking, my God, are all the signs sort of lining up saying, abandon before you even start, T, do it another day, or just don't even bother. But in many ways, the passive censorship, the shadow ban, and I know that L78, you experience these things. I know you're one of the few YouTubers that I do sort of stop what I'm doing to go out of my way to watch and listen to what you've got to say and sort of interact with your viewers. But you experience the same. Usually when I sort of tune into your channel, I'm quite envious in the fact that, goodness, I don't know what I would do if I ever had 30 or 40 viewers tune in, as the case is with some of your streams. But just the other day, sweet cheeks, it was just you and me for a while, which was a very strong, like, my goodness, the shadow banning is out in force at the moment. If I'm seeing a channel like yourself, which is a lot larger than this one, and you do seem to have a lot more regular offenders that tune into your live stream, not that it's a competition, but at the same time, when you see you getting a single viewer and I'm getting single viewers when I'm streaming, and messages and reports of people that are not getting notification or had no idea that we were live, this again is all sort of examples of what could be considered as shadow banning. So before I do get the presentation started, I feel like let's jump into it sooner rather than later, and then if we do have any problems, then we can try to salvage it one way or another. But Joe says his girlfriend that was I had a girlfriend that was a constant migraine. Okay, I thought you said you had a girlfriend that suffered from migraines. But yeah, girlfriends usually are migraines, and they're self-imposed migraines. We're idiots if we go out of our way and take a girlfriend and then complain that they give us a headache when we can leave them at any given moment and relieve ourselves. That works both ways for males or females. But I digress. Anyway, if anybody's got anything else to say or add to the chat before we do jump into this evening's presentation, hopefully you will pay attention. And we will resume live with me in the studio, and how many of you regular offenders do stick around to the end of the presentation. It's about an hour, 25 minutes long. If you do, as I said, want to make excuses and claim that you have other things to do right now, and you need a time frame before you can come back and join us live, hour, 25 minutes, folks. But those of you who are going to stick around, hopefully you'll find this evening's presentation a little bit interesting and maybe a little bit disturbing. And as I sort of did digress a little bit from the topic of memetics, it is something that I've brought a lot of information on. It is something that I've actually faced ridicule for talking about, and I've even had memes of myself made ridiculing me for talking about memetics. So if or not that tells you something, maybe I'm the only boy that can see the emperor's in his altogether, the emperor is in the altogether. But to me, and I don't want to sound like a lunatic when I say this, the biggest threat at the moment I can see is memes and memetics and what they're actually doing to the minds of the masses of society. And we all come across memes on a daily basis, and there are many people that I can see and have seen and even have friends that have become unable to communicate with words. They literally only communicate in memes or GIFs, the sort of moving version of memes. And there's, I'm pretty sure some of you guys also have friends that use an awful lot of emojis. We can remember our dear old Cajun agent viewer that didn't use words at all. Everything in every message she typed or commented was a series of emojis. But within the sort of pandemic era, and sort of within a very short time of the pandemic, taking hold of the global societies and communities and people in isolation, I started noticing an awful lot more memes being seen on Twitter, on Facebook. I don't do Instagram. But memes were saturating a lot of my news feeds. Now, again, this may be by the design of the algorithm, but at the same time, it was the result of people that had been sharing those memes. And I will talk a little bit more about this, the theory behind this in the presentation. But this was something that was ongoing, and the more and longer the sort of pandemic went, the more and more I started seeing people that sort of would normally just post pictures of their cat or their dog, or maybe what they're having for lunch, or their backyard, sharing memes more and more. And the great awakening, there's this sort of cultural creation that is going by the name of woke, that is sort of giving conspiracy theorists a really bad name and tarring us in a very, very bad light. But the woke movement, the woke community is something that is very, in my eyes, in my observations, based on research that I've done, it is very much in prime evidence of the effects of memetics and what memetics can do and how they sort of can kind of create hive minds. And I even sort of come up with a little term this afternoon when I was sort of touching up a little bit of re-edits in this evening's presentation, meme-turian candidates, because I sort of do truly believe that the methodologies that were once upon a time MK Ultra have now been compartmentalized, compressed, digitalized, and now are run by artificial intelligent handlers that reside within our cellular devices. And many people are being programmed, and the easiest way that some of these people seem to be programmed is through memes. That being said, thank you for your patience up until this point. I am going to get this feature presentation in place, ready to go, and momentarily I will be shutting off my camera and my microphone and going to step outside and make sure the dogs haven't choked to death or on lying in a pool of their own vomit. So as you know, guys, this is entertainment, this is informative, this is for your educational purposes. I am a non-profit organisation. I'm actually a loss of profit organisation. I'm not even an organisation, I'm just a single person with a tripod microphone and a cell phone that puts together shit video productions for a handful of people to watch, enjoy, and hopefully use as a platform to make up their own thoughts and opinions. So guys, stay tuned. We've got no copyrighted material to worry about this evening. We don't need any disclaimers, fair use, stuff like that. Sit back, relax, spark up if you've got one, pour yourself a drink if you want, and I'll see you live in about an hour 25 minutes. Right folks, so let's start out at the Darpa Defense Advanced Research Project Agency's website and get the information from the horse's mouth, so to speak, and see what they have to say the narrative network is all about. And it starts out by saying, why do people accept and act on certain kinds of information while dismissing others? Why are some narrative themes successful at building support for terrorism? And what role can narratives play in causing and helping to treat post-traumatic stress disorder? These questions deal with the role narratives play in human psychology and sociology, and their answers have a strategic implications for defense missions. Darpa launched the Narrative Networks program to understand how narratives influence human cognition and behavior and apply those findings in international security contexts. The program aims to address the factors that contribute to radicalization, violent social mobilization, insurgency, and terrorism among foreign populations. It also can be applicable to domestic populations. And the efforts are to support conflict prevention and resolution, effective communication, and innovative PTSD treatments. But narratives may consolidate memory, shape, and emotions, and they may cue heuristics and biases in judgment, and they also can influence group distinctions. To determine their influence on cognitive functions requires a working theory of narratives and an understanding what role they play in security contexts, and an examination of how to systematically analyze narratives and their psychological and neurobiological impact. Now, the Narrative Networks has 3 parallel tracks of research and development, the first of which is to develop quantitative analytic tools to study narratives and their effects on human behavior in, once again, security contexts. To analyze the neurobiological impact of narratives on hormones and neurotransmitters, reward processing, and emotion cognition interaction, and developing models and simulations of narrative influence in social and environmental contexts. Develop sensors to determine their impact on individuals and groups, and then suggest doctrinal modifications. So guys, to basically put that in layman's terms, in simplistic terms, algorithms are exactly what they are talking here, and algorithms then that are operated with artificial intelligence that in real time can analyze the impact of narratives to an individual and then feed back that data that they have received in real time once again to something like the narrative network, where they can see exactly what impact they have on people. And the narrative influence it is something we've always sort of been very aware of. We always sort of talk about in terms of the official narrative when we sort of talk about events like a certain September Tuesday morning. And in recent times, narratives are very, very, very important to control. And there's the sort of official narrative and the controlled narrative, which we will look at in a little while, how that kind of works and operates and comes out of the same factory. But that is, as I said, the Darpa website. We've got a little bit of information there, although not much information from the horse's mouth. But this is to sort of show and highlight to you that the narrative network is a real thing. It isn't one of those tinfoil hat conspiracy theories or one of those things that is being delivered to you via sort of TikTok influencers and hoping that that narrative will resonate with certain mindsets and then be repeated over and over again until we're for certain groups and demographics that will be accepted as the truth. But that's that for Darpa's website. We are going to go and have another look at something that gives us a little bit more information on just sort of how this operates and how this works and the sort of disturbing nature of it all. So stay tuned. We're coming back with another article pretty much right now. Okay, here at Physics.org, the article starts out by reading DARPA looking to master propaganda via the narrative networks, and this actually circulated in December of 2011, guys, over 11 years ago. So just look how much mastering of delivering propaganda DARPA must have learned over the last 11 years. But sometimes you just don't know whether to laugh or cry or be alarmed when hearing about what the boys in secretive backrooms are doing in the name of anti-terrorism or homeland security, or whatever they wish to call it. This time, it seems the Defense Advanced Research Project Agency, the semi-secret agency, charged with coming up with a new and cool ways to protect the citizens of the United States from foreign bad guys, wants to hire somebody to figure out how vulnerable some people are to narrative, oral stories, speeches, propaganda, books, etc. that cause people to think, and then supplant such messages with better messages to head off the path that for such people might lead them to becoming a terrorist, controlling the narrative, seeing what people have got to say about things and then redirecting it to a more desirable destination, one could argue. But called the Narrative Network Project, DARPA has released a solicitation for research proposals by those that have both the know-how and the technology to implement such a program, which is divided into two parts. Although we just seen from the DARPA website there are actually three parts, but the first part would evolve, just to repeat that, analyzing what happens to people when they hear or see a message. It is thought that certain messages or images actually cause a change in the brain to accommodate them as new ideas. And memes, of course, are images that contain messages that often change the brain to accommodate the new ideas. But the second part of the study is quite naturally would involve developing a means for taking advantage of what is learned in the first part, Or in other words, to come up with a way to find out who is vulnerable to messaging or certain messaging, and then to blast them with a message that would overwrite any undesirable brain changes that occurred as the result of that person being subjected to bad messages. So they would behave themselves. How to change behavioral patterns and how to defeat your enemy through mimetic warfare is to do just that. Change the way they think and how they behave to a more desirable behavioral and thought pattern. But at first blush, such a program would appear to be as scary as all get. And after all, if our government gets its hands on technology that could reprogram people who have come to feel things the government doesn't like, it seems like a really a good way to control them, including its own population. On a second thought, though, as reality starts to kick in, it appears that while some research in this area might bear some fruit, it's highly doubtful that any such program would meet with with much success. After all, governments and other entities have been trying how to figure ways to brainwash people for thousands of years with very little to show for their efforts. I could sort of argue that they've probably got lots to show for their efforts. But on the other hand, the folks at Darpa seem to think that new advances in technology might have changed the game a little bit. Now, at the time this was written, 2011, smart technology, iPhones and Android devices were sort of relatively new and not exactly in the hands of every individual, as is the case now. They were sort of still quite sort of expensive and quite exclusive, and only sort of 1 in 10 people may have had a smart device, where some of us still had the old-fashioned flip type phones. But back to the article. New types of brain scans can, for example, show a brain being changed due to a received message. And highly sophisticated electronic sensing devices are able to pick up even the slightest of nuances in facial expression. Remember, we have facial recognition now bedded within our camera that is pretty much recording all the time. If or not you have disabled it, regardless, it is still there recording each and every time. And many people have the facial recognition as their security lock on their phone. They sort of flash their face and the phone unlocks. So again, bear in mind this is 11 years old, and how many things that sort of now are sort of common knowledge and been accepted within the world of technology, and sort of all of this sort of technology does seem to be residing within our smart devices. But if the two technologies, the article continues to say, could be brought together, the thinking goes perhaps people could be scanned without their knowledge and found to be either vulnerable to messaging or already changed in some way by messaging from a suspect source. In such case, they could be targeted for specialized messaging that has been shown through research to be effective in overriding what has occurred in their unknowing noggins. Each phase is supposed to go for 18 months, though there doesn't appear to be any component of the project that calls for publicly publishing results found or describing product deliveries after completion. And that pretty much finishes up that article from Physics.org. But guys, listen to what they are saying, and take into consideration how in today's society it's extremely hard to navigate any news feed without seeing memes of one variety or another. Now, not all memes are nefarious, not all memes are propaganda, but the vast majority of them are, and what they are being used to do, even if they do seem very harmless and obscure, they are in fact implanting the messages slowly and the programming, piece by piece until you're more subjected to the messaging that they want you to receive and what they want you to be programmed with and what they want you to have as your belief system. And we have artificially intelligent algorithms. We have our own personalized artificial intelligent handler that resides within our smart devices, and we sort of give it access to all of our inner secrets and inner knowledge through sort of creating Google accounts and agreeing to sort of terms and conditions on various apps that gives the artificial intelligent handler all the information it could possibly want to know us better than ourselves, and then relay this information to somebody like Darpa at the Narrative Network, who can then tailor-make specified memes that they can then target and deliver to individuals or groups of individuals. So that was physics.org. It was a pretty short and sweet, but very much to the point article explaining exactly what the DARPA Narrative Network can do and what his intended purpose was. And again, this was way back in 2011 when smart technology and Apple and iPhone were or Apple and Android rather were still very sort of brand new, desirable concepts to a lot of folks. But now everybody has a cell phone and a smart device, if not multiple smart devices, on their person or within their whole household that is ever recording, ever watching, ever listening to what we have to say, and can relay this information that can then target and tailor make our own personalized programming. And the way that they are delivering that programming in recent times is through memes, where we are going to go and look next. Right, here at Gang Stalking, Mind Control and Cults.com, we're looking at a very, very, very short, not really very informative article about a project for mind control coming out of DARPA. And this mind control project was working towards narrative disruptors and inductors. And we just heard all about the narrative network in a few years after its conception. This was an advancement, I'm guessing, in that research to work towards controlling the minds of the masses. But on the 28th of February 2015, Mind Control, the fringe towards narrative disruptors and inductors, was mapping the narrative comprehension network and its persuasive effects. And in July of 2013, internet rumors began circulating about a DARPA research project that aimed at controlling the human mind. An article published by Activist Post, it was stated by a whistleblower that revealed that a military mind control project at a major university was underway. And what if the government could change people's moral beliefs or stop political dissent through remote control of people's brains? Now, remote controls humans are something we have looked at previously in the past here at Reality Decoded, and it all kind of works all hand in glove and all together in the mass manipulating of the mindset. And DARPA seems to be behind a lot of this memetical warfare, and they are not the only player in memetic wars. If they were the only enemy using memetic warfare against us, we might stand a chance. But sadly, the United States government, the United States military, NATO, the United Nations, the United Kingdom government, the list is pretty much endless of how many people are investing millions and millions of dollars, of pounds or euros into memetic research, and in particular how to utilize military memetics in civilian terms, should I say. But it sounds like science fiction, right? Well, a leaked document reveals that the US government, through DARPA, was a government contractor at all, of course, and not an actual wing of the government, which gives them sort of plausible deniability as to what DARPA may or may not going on. But it is very close to accomplishing in this. And again, this was back in 2013, a couple of years after the narrative network's conception. But activist Post was recently contacted by a whistleblower. No one necessarily is blowing whistles that ain't meant to be heard, so take of it what you will, and maybe add a pinch or handful of salt to your discretion as to what you make of this article. But he was working on a secret ongoing mind control project at DARPA, and the aim of the program is to remotely disrupt political dissent and extremism by employing transcranial magnetic simulation, the sort of thing that can be simulated from your cell phone, I'm pretty sure, in tandem with a sophisticated propaganda based on this technology. TMS stimulates the temporal lobe of the brain with good old electromagnetic fields, another topic and subject we have spoken greatly about. I think most recently would have been in an upload titled Havana Syndrome. Go and check that out. But frequency, weaponry and technology and mind control is something we have also spoken a great deal about at Reality Decoded, as well as memetics, which we are looking at more in depth this evening. But the program conducted by the Center for Strategic Communication is based at an Arizona State University, and the DARPA funding for this project can be confirmed on the ASU website, and there's a link to click on so you can get that confirmation. And the head of the project, Steve Corman, has worked extensively in the area of strategic communication as it applies to terrorism and extremism, or what could be called the war of ideas. Read more on that, but we won't be doing that today. But the author of this article sent out for a Freedom of Information Act request to the OSD, US and DARPA regarding this project, and below he received some documents which unfortunately I tried to click on, but you can't open them. But there you can see he did receive some documents. But that's pretty much all it is saying here on gang stalking, mind control and cults about the DARPA mind control project. And there are a few more articles out there on this if you choose to look into it further yourself. I'm trying to sort of keep this a little bit brief and maybe try to streamline the length and duration of these presentations, and maybe spend a little bit more time afterwards live in the studio talking about what we've just seen. So that is that for gang stalking, mind control and cults.com, a very interesting website. Again, I would recommend, if you're interested in stuff, checking it out. But let's go and check out some more articles on meme control, narrative networks, and how exactly they sort of are working to change the minds of the masses. So stay tuned, guys. We're coming back right now with another new article. We find ourselves here at LinkedIn.com to read an article from 2018 that reads Memes That Kill: The Future of Information Warfare. Now, this is a slightly longer article than the others that you'll see in this presentation, but this one actually contains the most information, does give us a little bit of a deeper look into the exact sort of goings on in how memetic warfare, military memetics truly works. And by the end of it, you may kind of start to see the darker nature of memes. But the article starts out by saying memes and social networks have become weaponized. And while many governments seemed ill-equipped to understand the new reality of information war, I would contradict and suggest that many governments probably seemed very well equipped and understand only too well the concept of the new reality of information warfare. But How will we fight state-sponsored information and propaganda in the future? Well, we won't know how to fight it unless we understand what it is and how the disinformation and propaganda is spread, which is why I do these presentations for you on military memetics. But this article comes from CB Insights, and for the full version, you can check us out here. Unfortunately, to get the full version, you do have to register and subscribe to their news list. But back in 2011, a professor with a background in robotics presented an idea that seemed radical at the time. But after conducting research backed by Darpa, and the same defense agency that helped spawn the internet, good old Dr. Robert Finkelstein proposed the creation of a brand new arm of the United States military, a meme control center. In internet speak, the word meme often refers to a amusing picture that goes viral on social media that contains a message in text with it. But more broadly, however, a meme is any idea that spreads, whether the idea is true or false. In this broader definition of meme that Finkelstein had in mind when he proposed the meme control center and his idea of memetic warfare. And here is a diagram from the PDF on military memetics, memetic warfare, that sort of points out and highlights how it works. So on the left-hand side of the screen, you can see a box that reads Memetics for Intelligence and National Defense, MIND, Mind, R&D Center. Then those memes get sent over to a meme control center, who then delivers them down the chain of command to a meme control officer, who may well be an artificial intelligence supercomputer with billions of algorithms at its disposal to create the exact desired content that will gain the desired reaction. And what the meme control officer then does is send the memes out to two separate processing centers. One, the meme processing center for the pro side of the argument or propaganda, and the counter meme processing center, which is the more dangerous of the two, for the counter propaganda of whatever agenda or narrative is requiring the use of memes to deliver the desired message. And both of these processing centers, pro and against, then distribute their memes to the world, where they get shared, replicated, and redistributed. And it says there that that was taken from the PDF of military memetics. But basically, Finkelstein's meme control center would pump the internet full of memes. And you can't deny, guys, that each and every day that you use your social media platforms, whatever they may be, you are going to come across a meme or two. They are literally saturating the internet. And I would go as far as to say that certainly social media platforms are the battlefields for memetic warfare, and they are the main delivery system for the messages contained within memetics. But Finkelstein happened to see a future in where guns and bombs are replaced with rumor and digital fakery, as well as social engineering. And again, the social engineering is very, very evident in my eyes as an observer in contemporary times. But here is another little graphic from that PDF on military memetics that shows you the tipping point, and it says here that the rumor is the most contagious of all social messages, and social media is ripe for the spread of rumors. And once upon a time, tabloid newspapers and maybe magazines, morning shows on TV were sort of fueled and generated purely by gossip and hearsay. But they contain sometimes a little kernel of truth within the rumor or within the urban legend that is being distorted in three directions. The first one would be level entry, and this is sort of for the very, very basic minded, I guess, that don't really want to do sort of more than just press share or retweet, and this will leave out details essential to understand the true meaning of the incident or the message, but provide a very, very, very tiny kernel of sort of factual truth to it. The second way that they do these things is to sharpen the story, i.e. make remaining details more specific, so sort of highlight the part of the messaging that they really, really want to seek in to sort of the next level of meme troops that are sort of being created via social media, depending on how much of this propaganda in memetics that they truly absorb. And the final sort of third wave of this is to simulate the story, i.e. to change the story so that it makes sense to those spreading the rumor. So pretty much you sort of tailor make and design the tailor as you the story as you evolve it. So you sort of provide the initial memes, and depending on what is responded to the most or how people are reacting to certain things, then you can continue to sort of tailor make the story in that desired direction. Again, saying that it was taken from the tutorial on military memetics back in 2011. Fast forwarding 7 years to the time this article was written, Finkelstein's ideas do not seem radical at all. In fact, they seem very far-sighted. The 2016 US presidential election was shaped by a volatile mix of fake news, foreign meddling, and doctored images, as well as massive email leaks and even a cartoon meme in the shape and form of good old Pepe the Frog. And not to mention a conservative news site called Infowars. But it no longer seems silly to say that the future of warfare isn't on the battlefields, but it is on our screens and in our minds, and our social media feeds, as I've already said, have become the battlefields for these information memetic warfare campaigns. But military and intelligence agencies around the world are already waging secret information wars in cyberspace, and their memes are already profoundly influencing public perceptions of truth, power, and legitimacy, and even more so in contemporary times of 2022, where it seems memes are in fact the main source of the majority of social media users' information, and the majority of social media users influenced by these memetics have become what I like to call memetically educated, that nearly all of their education comes from memes and not necessarily their own individual research. And thought implantation, monkey see, monkey do, is a sort of simplistic sort of version or way of saying what memetics and memes truly are. But this threat is only intensified as artificial intelligence tools becomes more and more widely available. And, you know, bear in mind, guys, that the device that you're probably watching this stream on, as well as the device I'm recording this presentation on, contains our own very personal artificial intelligent handler that kind of knows us better than we knows ourselves, knows every sort of little inner secret and idiosyncrasy that makes us us, and with that information contained within the metadata that it builds up from each and every individual that it is data harvesting, it then can create and tailor make misinformation or propaganda that it knows damn well you are going to react to and is going to titillate your fancy. But consider this, folks, a political bot army or fake user sock puppets. And fake user sock puppets would be sort of real people who are pretending to be something else. They might just sort of create an account that shares memes. They might sort of create an account or a platform or a channel of their own where they deliver mimetic messages in the form of a video or a live stream. I can assure you guys that is not what I am doing. I'm not a sock puppet. I'm not a fake user. I'm as independent and as real as I like to think that they come. But these bot armies and these fake user sock puppets are targeting social media feeds to computationally, I hope I'm reading that correct, spread propaganda. And again, sort of something that's very popular, certainly on Facebook, are little sort of social groups of popular or shared interests. I myself run hundreds, but quite a large amount of groups on Facebook with quite a large amount of members in that groups. But a group on Facebook, for example, can be very, very easy to sort of target in demographic. If it is about prepping, for example, you can send some AI bots or fake users into this group to pretend to be preppers and maybe sort of eventually start spreading disinformation. But back to the article. Online, the truth between, or the line between truth and falsehood is looking extremely fragile and as thin as a wafer-thin rolling paper, and as artificial intelligence researchers develop technologies that can make undetectable fake audio and video in pretty much real time, so to speak. But within a year, so judging by this article written in 2018, that by 2019 it will be easy, extremely easy, to create high-quality digital deceptions whose authenticity cannot easily be verified. Below, we detail the technologies, the tactics, and the implications of the next generation of war. And this warfare, guys, is being carried out in real time, in real life, on our social media screens, and many millions, if not billions, of social media users worldwide are being subject to the frontline battlefield and the mimetics and the propaganda that is being delivered on the pro or the against side of the argument. There is a high resolution version that is available on the subscription website, which we're not going to look at, but there you can see what the image that made up the thumbnail of a whole bunch of people staring at their phones, but the same sort of red light is symbolizing the sort of same messaging going into each and every single one of them from pretty much the same source, their cell phone, which is where most people get their information from. Apologies, guys, this is a little bit blurry. As I said, this isn't the high resolution version I hoped that I could have used for this presentation purpose, so forgive me if I don't have the ability to read all of the words on the screen with the utmost of ease, because my eyesight isn't exactly great to start with, in sort of having to read blurry, squiggly writing through squinted eyes isn't the most of easiest thing. But the first wave of military mimetics is a period of reconnaissance, which is what I kind of sort of believe the last couple of years has been, in particular the sort of earlier days of the lockdown, when everyone was sort of put into self-isolation, self-quarantine, was separated from society, from loved ones, from jobs, families and friends, such forth, in sort of kept company only by their artificial intelligent phone. They probably were spending most of their time on social media platforms. What was going on during this time was the artificial bots and the sort of sock puppets were collecting all the information and metadata on individuals and groups of individuals, and using that for research purposes and for targeting material, is what it sort of says then. So an adversary scopes and steals targets metadata, so they pretty much steal all of your sort of recent and regular posting habits, and then sort of from that conduct a sort of psychotronic or psychoanalysis of individuals or groups of individuals, and then they can sort of tailor make by design the next wave of propaganda, which is weaponization. As I said, I can't really read the words before we get down to the weaponization, but once the adversary has all this metadata, it then uses the metadata to create a psychographic profile or psychographic profiles that will be shared by many of these sock puppet fake users or programmed into the artificial intelligent bot armies that are then going to go out and deliver that message in the memetics. And weaponization is when artificial intelligent embedded editing software is used to generate malicious fake video and audio content, as well as fake and malicious memes that sort of like still videos. You get a picture and you get some words to read that obviously aren't read for you, but they become weaponized, and they either promote the pro side of the narrative or agenda, or they promote the counter side of the narrative and agenda. Then is the phase of attack, and the armies, be them artificial intelligent bots or sock puppets, will then strategically pump deceptive content into the information system. So example would be these bots in sock puppets would have 10 or so memes or variation of the same meme that they would then go out of their way to start posting on social media platforms or within groups on Facebook or delivering them via shills that are reading from the same script. But once they saturate the information platform or whatever social media site that you use of preference with the messaging, there's sort of no escaping whether or not you're for or against it, or have no thought whatsoever. You are going to encounter this propaganda on your news feeds, whether you want to or not. And there you can kind of see a drawing of an individual that's all very confused, looking at his phone screen, and sort of on that phone screen you can sort of see an individual that is delivering the message that is desired. But machine learning enabled bots feed the content to people that they are most likely to share faked media. So once you sort of got all the information, you've created your fake personas that are gonna sort of share similar mindsets or similar attributes to the individuals that you want to manipulate. You then give them all the information that you need them to share, whether it be fake or not, and they will go out and do that for the unwillingly and unknowingly, knowing that they have sort of become an extension in the military memetics, and they are becoming a propaganda delivery system of their own. The infection is when it has become saturated on the social media feed, and more people are seeing it and absorbing it as truth or as fakery, depending on how they see the narrative in their own personal eyes or within the eyes of the sort of hive mind that they are creating. I mean, it's a little bit kind of like an example in Star Wars, the prequel movies, when you had a pre-programmed clone army that was fighting a droid army that was artificial intelligent and controlled from a centralized computer. All of them had exactly the same ordering and programming within them, and they all behaved exactly the same to one another, and both of them of course were controlled by Palpatine, who was pulling the strings of both sides of that conflict, which is very much the case now. The same hands pull the strings to all sides of global wars, and in this particular case information information wars. But the social news feeds, as I was saying, enable the widespread sharing and viewing of deceptive content. And again, it doesn't matter if you share it, or agree with it, you are going to see it at some point or another. And the messaging contained within certainly sort of the picture memes that are the more commonly used as the distribution system, that messaging contained will be implanted in your mind the more times you go up and down and scroll through your social media. But stage 5 would be the destruction, and once the disinformation has run rampant online, eroding society's trust in institution and global leaders, and thus leading to chaos, confusion, and to even rebellion, which is why I think they're sort of counting on the end game of this particular memetic warfare campaign that we are contemporarily living in, is that many people have been subjected to the messaging in the pro or against memetics will eventually become sort of radicalized and rebellious, and may even take to all the sort of streets to fight against each other, very similar to the battle droids of the Trade Federation and the clone army of the Old Republic, while the perpetrators will sort of just sit back and watch the events going on and eventually reap the benefits. And again, once the sort of clone wars ended within the Star Wars prequels, the one galactic order of the Imperial Empire took the place of the role of the Old Republic once played in the galaxy, and was very much a draconian, tyrannical place to live, if you are familiar with the Star Wars movies, and we will not include the Disney monstrosities within that categorization. But there's a little picture of the rebellious meme warriors that I guess we could call them Meme-Chorian candidates through a series of programmatics through the 3 stages of memes, have become so sort of consumed and controlled and under the influence of the memetics that they in turn become radicalized in civil unrest, could possibly lead to martial law, which will probably not be relinquished once the incident has run its course. But if you were sort of building a one world order and you were working on a depopulation agenda, what sort of people would you want in your one world order? Would you want problematic, non-compliant, questioning everything government has to say types, or would you want compliant, would do anything we're told types to live there? I know who I would be choosing. I certainly want anybody that would question my authority in my own personal one world order. And maybe this is a selection process that the sort of more non-compliant, non-vax anti-maskers will essentially find themselves being rounded up because they've openly shared this content on their social media feed, and once it's on social media feed it sort of can't be unseen, and this can and could well be used as evidence against them. And certainly in contemporary times, when the United States government has categorized conspiracy theories and talking about anti-government agendas, and in particular speaking about the anti-COVIDian era, as acts of terrorism and terrorist thoughts. And once terrorism law comes into play, it's a very, very different kettle of fish than how regular law does. You can and will or could be detained indefinitely without charge, without a hearing, for the safety and security of the nation. It's always for safety and security that draconian measures are introduced and rolled out. But information attacks can be summed up in 1 century-old world provocation. I'm not even going to attempt to read the Russian version there of the word. But think of artificial bots in these sort of fake sock puppet accounts as agent provocateurs that are going to sort of add fuel to the fire and stir up the bee's nest until eventually people are going to get burnt or stunned. And it is an act that is said to have been practiced by spies in Russia in the Tsarist eras, and provocation describes staging of cloak and dagger deceptions to discredit to dismay and to confuse an opponent. And there's a lot of discrediting, dismay, and confusion in contemporary times concerning the COVIDian era and all that else that has been going on under the umbrella of the pandemic. But the drums, banners, and gongs of Sun Seas warfare, added by information technology, may now have evolved to the point where control can literally be imposed with little physical violence, pretty much imposed with a flick of a switch, I guess, or the click of a mouse, or the tapping of a touch-sensitive screen. And that was a quote from U.S. Colonel Richard Savansky, and that was a theory of information war preparing for 2020 that was written in 1995, folks, nearly 30 years ago. If you want to let that sink in, how long they have been preparing for mimetic warfare. But in addition to international interference, politicians have also been known to stage domestic digital influence campaigns. Good old President Trump's campaign has come under increasing scrutiny for reportedly contracting UK-based firm Cambridge Analytica to mine Facebook data and to influence voter behavior in the run-up to the 2016 election. However, we focus on cases of a foreign adversary attacking another country as opposed to the domestic influence campaigns, and it can work for either or. And both, but on a state-sponsored acts of information warfare is what they are kind of basing their research on. And a table of contents below gives you some links to some further information on this subject and sort of how these things work, which we're not going to click on now because this will take forever and a day to get through. But the rise of digital information, the article continues to say, how did we get here? It questions. Generally, information wars involve two types of attack. One would be acquiring sensitive data and strategically linking it, and or waging deceptive public influence campaigns, which is pretty much what's going on in today's time. Both of these are playing out in real time on your social media feeds. If you were to step away from this presentation and go to your social media platform of preference, you probably will see it right now going on as we speak. But both types of these attacks have made waves in recent years. In one of the most notorious examples, Russian agents staged information attacks intended to influence the outcome of the 2016 presidential election in the United States, and Russian cyber troops reportedly hacked and leaked sensitive email communications from the Democratic National Committee. And it conducted an online propaganda campaign to influence American voters. Facebook agrees with the FBI's indictment that a Russian government contracted unit called the Internet Research Agency, in brackets the IRA, not the Irish Republican Army of yesterday that terrorized England for many years with a dirty bomb campaign, was responsible for exposing up to 150 million Americans or 2/3 of the electorate, to foreign propaganda via the social media platform. The indictment does not say whether Russia's meddling had an effect or an impact on the election's outcome, but the electoral and media system's vulnerability is a worry for everyone, regardless of partisan politics. Of course, not all leaks are clear acts of war. In some cases, leaks serve as a stepping stone towards accountability and to transparency, as it is now considered the case with the so-called Pentagon Papers that revealed the extent of the US secret war in Southeast Asia. Essentially, leaks are a grey area. Each leak must be examined on a case-by-case basis before it's declared an act of war. And I've said before, nothing leaks that wasn't meant to, and nobody blows whistles that are not meant to be heard. They are all playing a part and all have a purpose in the grand agenda. But targeted disinformation campaigns, however, are not a grey area. They are malicious and they are corrosive, and they are once again playing out in real time on a social media platform near you. These attacks, including disinformation, propaganda, and digital deception, are the focus of this research. And in recent years, information attacks have materialized quickly and can spread very, very rapidly via social media. 4 years ago, the World Economic Forum, good old WEF, always having their fingers in all the pies and all the agendas, it would seem, named the spread of misinformation online the 10th most significant trend to watch in 2014, and in 2018, events like Russian election meddling confirm the systematic state-sponsored deployment of digital information / digital disinformations by a foreign adversary. In other words, between a 2-year period, 2014 to 2016, a bad actor's ability to manipulate information on the internet went from barely being a top 10 concern among thought leaders to likely having a direct effect on the American democratic process. 2022, 6 years later, it is having a direct effect on the minds of the masses around the globe concerning the COVIDian crisis. Whether you're for it or whether you're against it, there's a very good chance one way or another you have been influenced and affected by a form of mimetic propaganda designed and tailor-made for this particular crisis. And most of the narrative of the crisis is delivered in modern times via memetics on social media platforms. So not only American electoral campaigns can be influenced by memetics, the entire globe can be affected and influenced by them, as is the case in today's time. Russia is not only the only country responsible for distorting public opinion on the internet. A university study found instances of social media manipulation campaigns by organizations in at least 28 countries since the year 2010. One can only wonder just how many countries in 2022 are having these social media manipulation campaigns carried out in real time. Pretty much all of them, I would guess, although there's probably some some impoverished third world countries where such an influence is yet to take a hold. But the study also highlighted that why am I having difficulties with that word? You know what it says. But these regimes are not the only or even the best at organized social media manipulation. Quite often is the case that mercenary military forces are often a little bit better equipped in sort of lack certain moral flexibility that genuine military might possess. But typically cross-border information wars are waged by state-sponsored cyber troops, of which the world has many, and the United States happens to have the most. Little map there of countries that have been influenced this way. But the world is already facing the uncomfortable reality that people are increasingly confusing fact and fiction. And I don't think we are facing the uncomfortable reality. I think the uncomfortable reality is that the fact is people are increasingly confusing fact and fiction from one another, and where exactly does fiction end and fact begin in today's times, one can further question. But however, the technologies behind the spread of disinformation and deception online are still in their infancy, although in terms of human infancy, 6 years later they would already be in preschool, and in technological terms 6 years might as well be 6 centuries of advancement. One can only wonder just how advanced these technologies are right now. In fact, I sometimes wonder if artificial intelligent algorithms can sort of almost mirror a persona based purely on the personalities of an individual, given the data that you provide your cell device to work with. It can create somebody that is almost your identical soulmate, perhaps. But I've often had quite a few people that I've talked to privately on social media platforms in via messaging apps that I've sometimes suspected might sort of just be artificially intelligent generated characters that are just sort of keeping me happy and keeping me busy, or indulging me in conversation in order to harvest more data from me. But I digress there. But the spread of disinformation and deception were in their infancy in 2018, not so much the case now. And the problem of authenticating information is only starting to take shape, and is probably taken shape, but is becoming increasingly difficult as the technology creating it is becoming highly advanced. Put it simply, this is only the beginning. It hasn't begun, guys. We are in full, all-out mimetic warfare. The social media platform battlegrounds right now in real time are abundant, with the mimetic back and forth skirmishes between pro and against groups of individuals during this COVIDian era. And I do sort of believe that the COVID crisis was ushered in order to sort of really kickstart the meme wars on social media. And while sort of everyone's distracted with the disinformation campaigns and the mimetics, the sort of real sort of tyranny is going on in the shadows in the background. And this might well be a period of, it is a period of reconnaissance, but they've probably decided who's compliant and who isn't compliant, and a little bit like in Nazi Germany when they used the IBM punch card system to sort of distinguish who was Aryan and who was not Aryan enough in the sort of members of society that needed train rides to re-education camps was compiled and listed, and once the categories were done, then they could go out and start rounding up those people that weren't Aryan enough to live in National Socialist Germany. And I'm pretty sure you know what I'm talking about there. But maybe, judged on sort of content in stuff that you're sharing on social media, you may have already labelled yourself and targeted yourself for future re-education. And the article says that at the moment there isn't any Geneva Convention or United Nations treaty detailing how a nation or maybe an individual should define digital information attacks, or how they should proportionately retaliate as a result of being the victim of a information attack. But as new technologies spread, understanding the tactics and the circumstances that define the future of information/mimetic warfare is now more critical than ever, guys. And this is really and truly why I am bringing so many. I don't want to seem like repeating the same message and becoming a meme of my own or a one-trick pony. This is carrying out in real time. This is going on today. Many people, some of you may even have involuntarily sort of picked a side and become part of the mimetic military that is spreading this misinformation on social media feeds. And the only way that you can sort of be aware of it is if you're made aware of it, and there are very, very few people that I am aware of that are making anybody aware on the threat of military memetics, memetic warfare, and just exactly the true purpose and intent of social media, as myself has done in the past and am doing now. So the purpose of these many presentations on memetics is to make you as aware as you can possibly be on this subject. And trust me, guys, I have researched this a lot deeper than the content I've brought you and the information I've shared in these presentations. For you really to make of what you will. I'm not saying you have to believe what I'm saying or believe what you are seeing. I really share this information so you're aware of it, and now you're aware of it, you can literally make up your mind if or not memes are a true threat to society, or if everything I'm talking about regarding memetics is utter and complete horseshit. I don't care. Either way, I'm playing my part in trying to raise the awareness and spread the information and share my research with you all so you can do that. But the key elements, the article continues to say, of the future of digital information warfare can be found at this link there, which we've already seen before. And that's pretty much the end of that article. As I said, it is a little bit longer than the other ones, but it was a little bit more deeper and detailed into how the military memetics works, and maybe this will give you a greater understanding of military memetics and hopefully give you a better understanding of how you navigate your social media feed and how you behave on the social media feed. And I'm going to tell you guys, if there's a meme, then it's supporting a psychological operation. So that was it from LinkedIn.com, the article that was titled Memes That Kill the Future of Information Warfare. It is now no longer in the future. It is in our present and contemporary days. That was this guy, this article wrapped up. There is a little bit more to look at before we do wrap this up. So stay tuned, guys, because the next article is coming up right now. Right, guys, so here at aspstrategic.org, the article reads, How Memes Are Becoming the New Frontier of Information Warfare. And this is a more recent article from February of 2020. And there you can see a picture of a cat in a rubber ring that may or may not have been used as a meme template, although I've never seen that particular meme template. Let me know if you have. But everyone has seen a meme, whether they know it or not. They are everywhere, on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram. And the most popular ones make it off the internet and show up in newspapers, television shows, or even in films. And you've almost certainly seen Pepe the Frog. And if you haven't seen the classic woman yelling at a cat from 29, sooner or later, you will. But despite seeming like nothing more than silly phrases written on cartoons, memes are becoming a cultural touchstone. And it was only recently, actually, that a very, very good friend of mine, very dear friend of mine, who is very much in the conspiratorial mindset, as of myself and possibly some of you, happened to share a meme that we're looking at now. And you can sort of see that the message of the meme is, we're just a bunch of adults sharing memes 24/7 a day. And once I saw her post this meme, I sort of posted in the comments, do you ever stop and ask as to why that is exactly? But as I said, you will not be, it will be an almost impossible task for you in today's modern society to be able to navigate a social media newsfeed without coming across a meme or multiple memes in the personal user experience. But they might appear as though they are just little pranks kids play online, yet They are anything but, and I've been telling you this for a long, long time, guys, they are anything but pranks and harmless fun designed just to titillate the humour of social media users. And as we've just read in the article prior to this one, back in 2016, the US presidential election was claimed to be won using the use of memes. And they go on to say that many memes were made by a Russian troll farm to influence that outcome. They don't necessarily need to be using Russian troll farms to create memes to manipulate political electoral campaigns. You can use them to create memes for almost any narrative or agenda you so desire. And Russian troll farms, armed with all your metadata, are easily within seconds can come up with the perfect image and the perfect wording that will appeal to minds that are already under the manipulation and influence of memes. But it wasn't an isolated incident either. Now troll farms are popping up more frequently. In November of last year, that would have been 2019, an undercover reporter revealed a new one in Poland. The memes it's producing focus on the aviation and defense industries and target key decision makers involved in the awarding of a major government defense contract. The memeing, it has transpired, was in fact political memeing. Those memes were a form of information warfare, or what would have been thought of in the past as a psychological operation. Information warfare is often about waging an influence campaign that can change behavior through unconventional means or means, such as social media. And memes play a part in specific types of information warfare, dubbed mimetic warfare, something you should be able to tell me all about if you are an attentive regular offender of this channel. But early mimetic warfare used a more Dawkinsian concept of memes. And in his 1976 book, The Selfish Gene, something we spoke about and heard from, we've even heard from Richard Dawkins himself on memes. Which is where he first coined the term meme for a cultural product that can replicate and spread. The meme concept had immediate and clear implications for the information warfare campaigners. Meme warfare now more often refers to using memes as individual weapons of information warfare. It's a form of disinformation that can be used to secure strategic goals. Disinformation campaigns go back to at least 1923, when Soviet Union had an office for disinformation campaigns. I'm not going to attempt to read the Russian version of that. And a term coined by Stalin to describe false information carefully constructed within the intention to deceive. And back then they didn't have social media, but they did have something known as red squads, which were sort of black op controlled opposition, communist agents, KGB agents that would sort of pose as members of the public and sort of spread these ideas amongst people. And once they sort of had a sort of group mentality, then those groups could be rounded up and sent off to the good old gulag. But he used them to coin the term, to describe false information that was carefully constructed with the intention to deceive, getting myself back on track. But the internet has ushered in an age when deception can be perpetuated on a mass scale with a simple click of a mouse. The West is desperately lagging in its memetic capability, and again, when sort of articles come in from the West, they always sort of suggest that the Soviets and the Chinese are so much more advanced in leading the world leaders in these, when it's probably the exact opposite. You always blame your closest enemy for the things that you're doing, as the smoke and mirrors misdirection thing is an age-old tactic. But if or not the United States is lacking in memetic capabilities, who knows? But with Darpa funding and researching for the United States government, I seriously doubt that it is lacking and lagging in its memetic capability. But the US Marine Corps Major Michael P. Prosser proposed that NATO open a memetic warfare center in his 2006 thesis. Again, this is before 2011 and robotic technologies produced the handbook on memetic warfare. So as I've mentioned, it's been around a long time, guys, a very long time, and now we are witnessing exactly what memetic warfare looks like on our social media streams, and many people have inadvertently become frontline infantry that assist those artificial Russian troll farm bots in their aid to spread misinformation across the globe. But Dawkins, he looked at Dawkins' ideas of memes as units of cultural transmission that held the potential to be used like medicine to inoculate the enemy and generate popular support. He noted that information operations and psychological operations and strategic communications weren't using memes effectively. In the following decade, NATO never did open a meme warfare center, but the idea didn't go away, and it is now starting to gain traction again. At the same time, across the pond, DARPA funded Dr. Finkelstein, as we've already heard of, to investigate how it might weaponize memes. In his presentation to the Social Media for Defense Summit, Finkelstein recommended that memetic warfare for all public affairs units, the Central Intelligence Agency and the US Army, Civil Affairs and Psychological Operations Command. Whole lot of people there, guys, using military memetic tactics on your minds. And if you think you are above their influence, you might want to think again. I'm not going to say that I'm beyond the influence, but I am very aware, unlike many people, and seem to be one of the very few people speaking of the dangers of memetic warfare and the dangers of memes on any social media platform that I am a part of or have a presence on. But it wasn't until 2017 that the European Union and NATO established the European Centre of Excellence for Countering Hybrid Threats. While understanding memes as information warfare, and this falls within its remit, its purpose is more of an analytical than proactive. Currently, it seems the best form of defense is awareness, and this is why, guys, I keep telling and rabbiting on and putting up presentations on memetics, because your awareness to this will be your only shield in defense. That once you realize that you are being subjected to a memetic warfare misinformation campaign on your social media feeds, and you choose to ignore the memes that you see, then you're doing your part in preventing that information from being spread any further. But memes resemble traditional propaganda in a few ways. A hostile government can use them to spread malicious information in a way that is advantageous to it. But there are key differences too, because memes are a common way for people to express themselves online, and it's very easy to make memes without them being suspected as pieces of information warfare or pieces of propaganda. And they can be much more targeted. Traditional propaganda focuses on large groups of people who have had some spatial or political link. The way the internet fingerprints users allows hostile actors to draw up their own lists looking for links even users don't know they share. Authoritarian regimes may be less susceptible to mimetic warfare because they have more control over their social media system. China employs 20,000 to 50,000 internet police and an additional 250,000 trolls who spread pro-Beijing material domestically and abroad. Mimetic warfare isn't just military, but civil as well. Some 1,200 TikTok channels are run by various Chinese civil authorities. TikTok Tavistock, give a shill a meme, but such as police stations, SWAT teams, traffic police, and prisons. They have produced more than 13,000 videos and amassed a combined 4.8 billion views. Its domestic attempt to control the online narrative by the security service, and it is unlikely that a meme such as that of the Chinese police are responsible for assimilating high-profile individuals. So they can kind of build an individual's MO based on the amount of memes and the type of memes that they are sharing. And bearing in mind, guys, once you share this stuff to social media, it is always there to be seen, and the algorithm is already collected that data and information and sent it to powers to be in many private bidders that also pay good money for your information to target you with all sorts of mimetic warfare. It might even be something just as harmless as an advertisement campaign, but we are subjected to non-stop mimetic information campaigns online on a daily basis, and depending on how much time you spend each day online will determine how much time you are subjected to mimetic warfare. But as I said, they can profile a person based on the memes that they have been sharing. Memes can also have dual functions, as there is always the dual technology purpose in any agenda and technology. As well as acting as a form of information warfare, they can also help normalize extreme behaviors through humor, for example. Memes can be a recruitment tool for white nationalist groups, or maybe anti-vax or anti-mask radicalization. The Christchurch mosque terrorist Brenton Tarrant frequently used 8chan. All Chan sites require users to submit images with text. As a result, these right-wing sites are a fertile breeding ground for memes that normalize extreme behavior and reinforce each other. Slowly, the memes seep out into more common areas of the internet, such as Twitter. That everybody on 4chan should be considered a terrorist itself is already a meme on 4chan. And terrorist activities and categorizing what is or isn't considered terrorist threat or terrorist activity is something that is also of particular interest, because it is only in recent years that the United States government has added talking about conspiracy theories as terrorist activities and a terrorist threat. So anybody that is sort of spreading the counter meme narrative on their social media platforms, this can be interpreted as spreading extreme terrorist material, and they can be treated, arrested, and detained as a terrorist, which has very different implications than being sort of arrested under, non-terrorist charges. For one, you can be detained indefinitely without charge. And one of the ways information warfare that back to the article, can be fought is simply by raising awareness about issues. Ironically, since it is not the youth who are most radicalized by social media, it's actually the older minds, there needs to be a concerted effort to make people more aware than ever that memes can be harmful. And no one can deny I haven't done my part in trying to make people more aware that memes are harmful, even at the expense of my own ridicule, and even at the expense of a viewer and follower on Twitter, Shadowfist24, who went out of his way to make memes of myself mocking me. Thanks for that, Shadowfist1984, wherever you may be. But as I said, I've been ridiculed and subjected to memes about myself for talking about the dangers of memes. So I'm playing my part in trying to raise awareness, and it's now up to you guys if or not you are retaining or resonating this information, and if you're finally starting to see the threat and true nature of memes is to what they are, then please, guys, go out of your way to do your very minimum efforts to try and, if not raise awareness, but control the amount of memeing that you do. In fact, try to go cold turkey. Try to go a whole week without sharing a meme if you can. But where were we in the article? Making people aware that they are harmful. Awareness that a stranger on Twitter may in fact be a bot or a paid troll or a shill hasn't stopped hostile actors from achieving their goals. They're not trying to win debates online by making convincing arguments, but to amplify the loudest voices in a fight, deepening the divisions between us. So there you have it, guys. That was the strategist, sorry about that, article on how memes are becoming the new frontier of informational warfare, and thus concludes the pre-recorded feature presentation part of this live stream. We will be heading over to the SVP Ship Video Productions studio live, where we can chat, debate and interact with one another in real time about what we've just seen. So if you want to go and take a bathroom break, you want to go and roll yourself a little something to smoke, or pour yourself something to drink, now is the time to do so, as we take a small interlude before we do return live and alive in the studio. If you found this evening's stream on memetics particularly interested, and you'd like to know more about memetics, head on over to my YouTube channel, click on the playlist links, scroll yourself down, and you will find a playlist titled Memetics, where you can watch such previous live streams as Meme Control, Meme K Ultra, Memetic Mind Control, Wars, Your Mind is the Battlefield, Copy and Paste but Change What the Bunny is Holding, Memetic Mind Control, for hours and hours of information on the topic of military memetics and memetic warfare. Please be sure to check out Reality Decoded's playlist section and click on the Memetics playlist for your entertainment, information and educational purposes.
Wake up to reality. Nothing ever goes as planned in this accursed world. The longer you live, the more you will realize that the only things that truly exist in this reality are merely pain, suffering, and futility. Listen. Everywhere you look in this world, wherever there is light, there will always be shadows to be found as well.
Welcome back. We are alive and live. I am in the studio. The good news is there are no dead pets, and they're a little less rambunctious than they were at the start of this presentation, which hopefully you guys can tell me what you have to think about it, because you've just heard for the last hour and 25 minutes what I have to say on it, and what some of these articles and who exactly the main players are in the world of military memetics, and who exactly are carrying out memetic warfare campaigns in real time on social media. The list is endless. All your favourite alphabet agencies are involved in this. The US military, as we've heard, or have you seen and heard in the presentation, all the main players, all the adversaries, all the sort of questionable organisations in this world are playing their part in carrying out a memetic warfare campaign. And if or not any of your guys' minds have been changed on exactly what memes are in the last hour and 25 minutes, hour and 25 minutes, yeah, it was an hour and 25 minutes. Now is your time to say so. But there was an interesting, I think it was Hurricane, if I can remember rightly, you mentioned something about a video game, Metal Gear Solid, is it correct? I'm familiar with the title. It's a shooter game, I believe, but I'm not much of a gamer myself. We might have a kitten attack very, very shortly. She's just jumped onto the counter and is very close to my tripod. If those of you haven't seen, before she does any damage, there is my little rescue kitten, Bonfilia. She's about 4.5 months now. Poor little thing was tossed in the garbage with her brothers and sisters. Were not exactly as lucky as little Bonfilia here to have me pluck her out of the garbage and hand feed her for a few months. But she is one of my furry companions that causes me all sorts of problems, but also lots of enjoyment. Sorry to digress. I was trying to avert a disaster happening and a camera being knocked down. I've actually got a tiny puppy that's, well, not too tiny anymore. It's got quite big at my feet. That's sort of sleeping, resting, that I don't want to disturb. And a slightly older dog that is also calmed down a bit, that you might sort of be able to see there, licking herself. But there you go, very different studio to the dingy little basement I had back in Toronto. But I kind of missed that little dingy basement in many ways. It sort of embodied exactly a little bit what Shit Video Productions is all about. Thank you for your kind words as always, Sweet Cheeks. I know you were paying attention. And yeah, fuck Darpa. I mean, this is going back not just 12 years ago when DARPA were introduced to this, and the idea and the concept in the pamphlet for military memetics was delivered not just to DARPA but all the agencies across the globe. It went back to we heard about somebody talking about this in 1995. Now in a couple and in quite a few of my mind control stuff and in a few of my 80s decoded streams, we sort of looked at a little bit of information controlling concerning electromagnetic frequencies and their ability to control the minds of the recipient or the victim of a EMF blast. And in one particular little snippet that I got from CNN that did a special report back in the day on mind control in the United States and how much of a real threat it was, they talked about in the 1980s that the technology that they needed in order to do this, to control the minds of the masses of the American population with frequencies alone, already existed nearly 40 years ago. And if you haven't watched it already, check out weaponized Walkmans, because these were the first real digital devices that we started to carry around on our person that also acted as a transmitter. The other things we used to wear were digital watches, but back in the 1980s these sort of devices become very, very popularized through TVs, shows and movies, in fashionable magazines, in a form of memetics. Also could be examples of fashion that we see, our favorite celebrity or movie star or rock star in a magazine or in a video, in the way they're dressed or the way they have their hairstyle. People copy it. The Rachel, Friends, that all loving, ever popular sitcom from back in the 1990s. Within a few episodes of Friends being very, very popular, all of a sudden around the globe, little carbon copies of Rachel turned up with their little, cute haircut. And that is another sort of example of memetics. But we're in 2022. People don't necessarily sit in and tune into the latest sitcoms. They don't necessarily pick up puprose. They pick up their cellular devices, and some people don't let it out of his hands. For long periods of time. It's already sort of pretty much fixed to our person. You don't need to implant it if somebody's willing to carry it around with them all the time. But she's a dude. Who's a dude? Who are we talking about? Rachel, I mean. Oh yeah, I mean, this again, we really believe in that every single actor and actress in Hollywood is transgender. I'm not saying it's not a possibility, but this again, to me, is what we've just heard tonight, how sort of bots can go out with this information that everyone in Hollywood's a tranny, Jennifer Aniston's a boy. I mean, I do believe that Serena and her sister, the Williams sisters, that they possibly might have been men, and actually think they might have been cloned versions of Tyson, and they just give them a weave and go play tennis, don't bite anyone's ear off. Because they do sort of have a very masculine form about them. And there are quite a few chicks out there that do have masculine forms. That Rapinoe, the soccer girl, she sort of looks and walks and carries herself sort of more of like a boy than she sort of does a girl. But if or not she was a boy that was sort of shit at football and couldn't make it professionally as a male, and sort of tucked in and stuck it up her crack and pretended she was a girl so that she'd be a little bit better at the sport, who knows. But you know, there's been sort of examples that we're sort of getting a little bit off of topics now, but there was examples of sort of males who identify as females who kind of went into sort of wrestling or MMA sort of kind of competitions and literally licked the floor with the best female opposition that there was. In talking of that Megan Rapinoe chick in the United States national soccer team, or the women's national soccer team, that were world champions, pre their last World Cup victory, they played a sort of exhibition game against an unprofessional schoolboy. There were 14, 15-year-old boys that sort of just play for their school, not professionally, aren't exactly conditioned or disciplined, although they have a little bit of training from their PE teacher, but they don't have, you know, physios, they don't have professionals to help and peak them at their height of physicality. And the boys beat them 14-0, which, if you don't know about soccer, 14-0 is a fucking whitewash. Like, you just got raped, destroyed and re-raped, and like then ended up raping yourself. That is how much of a bad defeat that would be. If or not they lost on purpose, who knows, but it is an example how the top women's football team was humbled and crumbled by 14-year-old unprofessional boys. But, you know, back to the sort of whole tranny campaign, there are quite a few people that I see on Twitter that are sometimes suggested to me that seem to talk about nothing but Hollywood trannies. In, you know, what we've just heard tonight about Russian bots and how you can arm like 100 bots with the same narrative and spread them out into social media. You tell me if or not this is evidence of actual independent research and people looking into the fact that there are people in Hollywood, you know, transsexuals are boys girls and girls boys, or is this the product of mimetic education, and is this the misinformation in providing, you know, a pool of thought for people that feel comfortable believing that? And we all need our own personal belief systems, and this is what mimetics can do in real time. They can tailor make the perfect example with the right image in, the right word in, that can show up on your news screen and go into your mind. And, you know, with the social media memes on your social media screens when you're scrolling on your phone, the words are usually very, very, very bold. And, you know, the action of scrolling up, you might pass by it, but the brain has picked up the messaging in that. And, you know, Al, you mentioned the isolation were the perfect conditions in order to implement this and sort of carry it off to perfection. And these are also, you know, the isolation, the segregation, the disassociation with normality, the uncertainty of what's coming next, the unnormalization of what was once very familiar to you, disrupts the mind enough that it will be subjected to messaging and to programming. This is how cults attract their members. And, you know, you don't need to go out and stand outside of job centres or benefit offices, or where, you know, cultists often used to sort of hang out to recruit people. you can do it online, and you can create an artificially intelligent cult leader that can go in and raise the minds of the masses into his thought processes. And, you know, I mentioned TikTok and Tavistock being hand in glove, and we heard how there's like 12,000 or 1,200 rather channels that were just created by Russian troll accounts. How many more channels? That's just one example. How many you know, accounts, and you know, this is across the board on Twitter, on Facebook, on TikTok especially, are purposely created to deliver a messaging in a form of memetics. You know, even the singing and dancing nurses at the start of the pandemic, when they were so overwhelmed, but nearly all of them had time to go out and create a dance routine. Now, quite a lot of those dance routines were probably carried out in their infancy by paid actors, or maybe even real dancers. Okay, we're going to make a fun. They may not have known the part they were playing, and we're going to make a fun, you know, moral boosting video for TikTok. Dress up as a nurse, put some masks on, and let's get down to Thriller or, you know, Celine Dion track. Although, can you dance to Celine Dion? Probably not. If you do, there's something wrong with you. And there's another individual that is considered to be once a male. But anyway, Tuna Dude, did you creep in at the back door without me noticing? How are you, my good old buddy over across the pond in good old Western Supermare? Are you enjoying the heat wave? You must be loving it in Western Supermare with all this hot weather recently. You don't need to get yourself off to the Costa Brava or the Algarve, as most Brits used to do, to get a little bit of sunshine. Once upon a time. So Marduke's got some friends over, no worries, we'll catch you soon. Dearest Rachel I mean, Big Mike. So I'm seeing if there's anybody that's got anything to add from what they saw, or if anything in particular kind of like stood out to them as a little bit of an alarm bell in the information that I did contain within that presentation. Sorry, I'm getting a little bit dry. And went on a little bit of a monologue there, but if not, we have too much or not to add on this. I will probably wrap this up in the next couple of minutes, get the dancing girl into place, because I got to take these little guys out for their midnight constitutional, which it's not actually midnight at the moment. It's only 10 o'clock where I am at the minute, so I'm never mind. Yeah, El, I truly believe in the sort of the popularity and the rise of TikTok during the COVID. Like, I'd never really heard of TikTok's existence pre COVID, although I may have seen one or two of the girls that I worked with using it, because they were sort of little socialites in the terms of social media-ites. I guess they didn't sort of go out and socialise, they just did their socialising on platforms. But its popularity certainly did rise, in my observations, during the pandemic, and in particular an awful lot of the counter-narrative for the COVIDian crisis is, from my viewpoint, coming out of TikTok. And again, TikTok, Tavistock. We know all about the good old Tavistock Institute, and the fact that what they do is create cultures that we've all been influenced through one way or another in our lives. There's very little that hasn't been created in society, and there's very little that is organic and independent. Everything plays a bigger part of a design. And you know, we've done shows on Tavistock, and we mentioned how you know, the psychedelic 60s was a concept designed by Tavistock, and how they designed and created the bands to deliver the radicalization message that did influence teenagers all across the United States and around the globe. You know, the hippie power, you know, flower power, free love, and added to the mix psychedelic drugs, psychedelic music, shamanic experiences such as Woodstock, where people were off their tits listening to weird music and flashing lights. All of this plays a part in controlling or changing the mind's direction. And you know, without the radicalization of teenagers, and even teenagers in themselves is another Tavistockian concept, because once upon a time there was no such sort of terminology as teenagers, and sort of good old folks like James Dean in the 50s and Rock Around the Clock and Bill Haley they too played their part in culture creation that sort of paved the way to Woodstock, and the generation of Woodstock then become spawned Generation X. And in the good old 90s, Tuna, you will know only too well, back in the late 1980s in the UK, 1988 was known as the Summer of Love, and acid house was introduced to society, and along with acid house come acid, ecstasy, amphetamines that we used to call speed, and we were all sorted out for ease and whiz back in the day. Am I right, Tuna? And many millions of teenagers and people in their young 20s, rather than settling down, starting families, going off in pursuing a career or happiness, we all spent the majority of the 1990s drugged up, high off of our tits, dancing to technotronic music in dark and dingy warehouses with strobe lighting, with laser beams, and we experienced a suspended adolescence. We didn't grow up the way our parents grew up. My mum and dad, and bless my father's soul, wherever he may be, one with the force he is now, but my mum and dad, they got married when, like, my mum was 21 when she gave birth to me, but she was married at 19, and many people that I grew up with and went to school with, the story was the same. Their parents sort of had them in their early 20s, but I didn't settle down until I was like in my very, very late 20s. I didn't get married until I was in my 30s, and I didn't have kids until I was in my late 30s. And what this did, I wasn't alone. Many people started their families a lot later, and this kind of creates a generation gap. We had the boomers pre-war, and then by the time they got to Generation X, we sort of slowed down and stopped a little bit, and the sort of boomers in those older generations are ceasing to exist. And what we did is sort of kind of make a little bit of a breakwater, I guess, from the older generations, and this paved the way for the newer generations that are being spawned and modelled through memetics to be the perfect model citizens for the one world order. It's not about our children, it's about children's children. We've played our part by introducing kids to things like video games, because in the good old 80s and into the 90s, we started out with Atari. By the time the 90s come around, I was a grown adult. I was in my 20s waiting to get latest video games or the latest video game console when it come out. It was very exciting about a PlayStation, and sort of, by the time I sort of did get a wife, I outgrew gaming. But back in the day, Atari, Intellivision, all of these were introduced to us, and when we had kids, I can't wait to sit down and play video games with my kids. And we probably introduced video games to them a lot younger than we were introduced to them. And we're already like sort of 22 years into the 21st century, where there's been a generation that's already been born that doesn't know a world before smart technology. And the fact that smart technology and social media platforms are awash with memes, and having given all the information that I've provided for you to make of what you will, putting all this together, this whole COVIDian era is a mind control. It's divide and conquer. They've divided the majority of people into two columns, whether it's I don't care if I get a vaccine or wear a mask, who I'm fighting freedom, I will never comply, in non-compliance. This is a mimetic narrative that many of the woke, of the great awakening, seem to retort and use as their terminology very, very, very frequently. Many of the Jews didn't comply when they were asked to get on the trains, and in response to their non-compliance, many of the German stormtroopers would fix their bayonets to the rifles, and they would go up to the lineup of people that sort of were complying and waiting to get onto the carts, and they would find children, and in particular the younger and the more infant children, the better, and bayonet them. And they would stab children, they'd put children up on the spikes, and they'd shake their rifles up and down until the little baby squandered. And sooner or later, the non-compliants decided, let's just get on the train. So you can be non-compliant to a degree, right? And you can fight the fight. But the truth of the matter is that most of these sort of anti-vaxxers, anti-mask types that are spreading a lot of memes and a lot of counter-propaganda through the memetics that they are share this shit while they're taking a shit. They're not out researching, they're not digging deep, finding, you know, stuff in the darker parts of the web pages, or going 20 pages deep into a search before they find something of interest. And this is something, again, I've got an awful lot in time for you, Al, and I used to have a lot of time for good old Iggy at Shadowband Productions, wherever he is. I haven't seen him upload anything for a lot of time, but you guys, when you put your live streams together, it's not about the live stream, it's about the hours that you've put in finding and researching the information that goes into your live stream, and that takes time and effort. And, you know, when you've got kids, you've got jobs, you've got busy life, this takes sometimes a large chunk of your life away from you. And I have not ruled out, and I'm actually pretty much certain that I'm just following my own personal programming, that some of the researching and stuff I do may and may not just be tailor-made and created just to keep me happy. But that may or may not be the case. But let's see if anyone's got anything to say on what I've been chatting about. I'm sorry, I am monologuing a little bit. Drops Family Garden, good to see you. I learned from you about teenagers tea. Well, thank you, Al. I'm glad that some of the very few regular offenders do sometimes learn a thing or two from tuning in from this. But again, I will reiterate that I'm not telling you that you have to believe it. You don't have to share my thoughts and opinions on any of the information and presentations I bring to you. I just bring it to you because it's information I find interesting, and it's up to you what you do with it. But the message I sort of repeat in there, that the only defense we have to this is awareness. Now, I remember in a previous stream, I had a few people watching, not exactly very many, but a viewer that isn't watching at the moment was in the audience, and I kind of dropped let's have a challenge, try and go 1 week without sharing a meme. And the response was, oh, I never share memes, there's nothing, you know, I don't share memes, it'll be easy for me. And I actually went to her Facebook, in a little bit of the ass hat in jerking me. I went to her social media feed and I commented meme on every meme that she had shared. And believe it or not, there wasn't a thing on her news feed that wasn't a meme. And I do recall one of the memes she happened to share, and I'm not naming and shaming her by any means, but one of the memes that she shared that had been shared something like 2 million times read, I don't know it word for word, it didn't have a picture, it just had a word in sort of smiley emojis in the background. I'd rather be a tinfoil hat wearing conspiracy theorist than to be a sheeple that believes everything the government tells them. Share if you agree. Now, who's the sheep in this instant? The sheep that followed 3 million times sharing this meme, or the sheep that are not really existent in this equation? You know, and there are many breeds of sheep on the farm, and the pigs don't know the sheep are getting taken to short slaughter no more than the sheep know the pigs are being taken to slaughter. And, you know, with regards to this whole great fakening and the mimetically educated woke that are sort of shouting the loudest about the anti-COVID narrative, I've sort of mentioned more than once, the shepherd has to wake the flock to take it to slaughter. They ain't going there when they're asleep, and you only need to be in a state of doze to be considered awake. You know, in the morning when you haven't had your coffee or a spliff yet and you're sort of hitting at the alarm clock, 5 more more minutes. If the woke of the Great Awakening were as awake as with that, we might stand a chance, but they're not. They ain't got a dicky bird. It's what's really going on. And as we've established from the Stevens presentation, they don't realise that they are the products of manipulation from military memetics, and as a result, they don't need to keep the programs running for the AI bots as much as they do once they deliver the narrative to these individuals that in turn share it and share it and share it. And more often than not, all they're doing is preaching to the choir, because the algorithm has a very good knack of showing you what you want to see. Something I never do is click on any content that is suggested to me by any social media feed. That's the last content in the world I'm probably gonna watch for. And you know, some of you guys that I do subscribe to, and I apologize if I don't watch as many of your uploads as you should, but you know, life does sort of take a hold of us, and you don't always got the time to sit down and watch everything that you would like to watch, as well as trying to sort of put together stuff like this. But none of you guys ever get suggested to me when I go on like YouTube, and sort of I've often heard from many people that do subscribe to my channel, I didn't know you were live, I never got a notification. I mean, they might just be making excuses that they didn't want to watch, but there is a very good chance, and I know too well, that people don't get notified, because I don't get notified when any of you upload videos, or if I do, it's usually like 3 or 4 days after the fact, especially you, Al, whenever you go live, it's usually 4 or 5 days before I get a notification, if I get a notification. But there you go. I am gonna, as I said, look to wrap this up sooner than later. So now is your chance. I just got a notification, funny enough. The algorithm proves that it's listening, even though my microphone is deactivated. I didn't give it permission on devices that I don't use for recording, and then I only give it permission when I am actually recording or using it. But funny enough, I just got a notification to say Davy Crocco is live. So maybe some of you might be heading over there. So if he's going live, I will shorten this even more so you can go and do that. And as I said, I've been monologuing an awful lot on memetics this evening for nearly 2 hours and 10 minutes. Drop's been watching most of the show with me. He just got on the computer. Title Surfers. Sorry, what's that in reference to? Or is it something I've said and already forgotten? Makes me think sometimes. I like to further my curiosity about subjects that you bring up. Well, again, you know, you can sometimes bring the horses to water, but they don't always drink. And that when I hear that sort of people, they're at least sort of willing to dip their tongue in to see what it tastes like, it is certainly encouraging. And, you know, how do we counter memes? We need to share the information about the danger of memes. Now, if you can go and find me anybody else on YouTube that is putting the effort and information together that I am on memeology, please share me the link, because I'd like to reach out with him and collaborate, because sometimes I feel like the fucking lone wolf, crying in the wind, knowing that the pack's already waiting to be shot by the farmer's gun. Funny, Crocco was like, maybe it's that late. The notification is that much late, but it come in a minute ago, live on YouTube. But actually it didn't come from YouTube, it come from Discord. So there you go, YouTube didn't notify me it was there. But as I said, guys, let me get a famous little, I know I'm pretty sure this is the only reason Joe Ayala tunes in to wait for the very end, so he can get his rocks off to the little anime girl dancing her butt off to send you all off to dreamland or wherever it is you may be once this stream is done. Thank you, Drop. I just did, funny enough, get a notification to say you'd subscribed. Certainly appreciate your support in that. You don't have to hit the thumbs up, you don't got to share this shit, it's up to you if or not you further research this information. But hopefully now you are starting to see the bigger picture and realize that memes aren't exactly as harmless and titillating as you may once have thought they were. And if you do want to take to crusading alongside me and help get this message out, that memes are bad, we should get that fucking character from South Park. Yeah, memes are bad. I can't remember you know the one I'm talking about. Drugs are bad. But thank you for tuning in. It wouldn't be any point in me doing it if you didn't tune in, and you know, I don't really want millions of people to tune in. It is nice though to get more than one. So you've been great company. Hopefully, as I said, you found this entertaining, informative, and educational, although I'm not going to say enjoyable because there probably wasn't much content to enjoy. It might just be the opposite and be something to give you nightmares. But do look a little bit deeper into it for yourself, and if you can, maybe stop sharing memes altogether, or better still, create your own memes. That being said, guys, thanks for watching. This is Reality Decoded, brought to you by Ship Video Productions. Until next time, take care, may the force be with you, and most importantly, be excellent to one another.